Welcome back, guys, to week 2 of the 2025 alt season, where in today's video we're going to have a look at how things have played out since Friday here for the Bitcoin price chart and the rest of the cryptocurrency market here, seeing that the altcoin market has now cleared through all retracement levels, and at the same time we are seeing the Bitcoin dominance continuing to break down as we have been seeing altcoins continue to climb higher and higher. So in today's video we're going to dive into altcoins like Ethereum, like XRP, Solana, HBAR, Dogecoin, Chainlink, Sui, and TIA. Then we're going to compare how all of these charts are performing in comparison to the rest of the altcoin market and which different stages certain coins are at in this cycle and what coins we can expect from that list to outperform soon and pull catch up on some of the coins that have already ripped past all-time highs like XRP here, for example. So lots to jump into on today's video, guys. Let's get into it. Alright guys, firstly we're just going to cover Bitcoin really quick here. Throughout the weekend, absolutely nothing happened here for Bitcoin. Still waiting for that C leg if it happens. And that is it for Bitcoin, because what we are here for is the altcoin market. And this week is officially the second week of the 2025 alt season. And what we're seeing play out since Friday's video is the altcoin market, excluding Bitcoin here, actually break out through all its final retracement levels here and pushing towards that previous all-time high set back in early December of last year. At the same time, the Bitcoin dominance is continuing to fall here, breaking down well below those May lows and just continuing to drop and drop with no pullbacks or any consolidations happening, which is exactly what we want to see in an alt season, which if we have a look back to 2021, which was the previous alt season that we had in the cryptocurrency market, you can see that Bitcoin's dominance just broke down to the downside here the entire time. It happened really fast, and that this final move in the breakdown of the dominance only lasted a total of roughly 50 days. And so far, we are roughly 17 days into the 2025 alt season. So the first coin I want to cover here on the channel is actually XRP, because I know a lot of viewers here have a vested interest in this. And I'm seeing a lot of people get a little bit jittery here about XRP actually breaking out into a new all-time high, which happened last week. However, I just want to show an example here from earlier in XRP's cycle. And as you can see here, this blue fractal has actually been pulled from November of last year. And what you can see is that in November of last year, when XRP initially took off, roughly this zone here is the zone I do believe we are in for XRP right now. And that if you are to stretch this fractal a little bit, line up the bear markets and the consolidation zones, you can see that we are roughly in a move like this for XRP now, where we are seeing a bit more of a prolonged consolidation. However, if things were to play out like they did last time, we should start to see XRP move to the upside, and that the next real pit stop for XRP should land us around those $6 areas, with this fractal pointing to XRP actually making it to roughly $9 before topping. So the point of me actually pulling this fractal isn't to say that things should play out the way they did back in November and potentially even stop here and go to these prices, etc. The point of this is to show how early we potentially are in a move like this, and that all we've seen so far is XRP break out, set a new all-time high last week, and we're actually seeing price consolidate above that, which is quite bullish and exactly what you want to see if you're expecting the coin to continue to move up further. If we had have seen rejections before the all-time high and some sort of consolidation down lower, I would have been a little bit more cautious here, but everything that we're seeing play out, the flag that we're seeing form here is quite bullish, and I think things are going to continue to play out like they did in November of last year, where price did just shoot up from these levels. Now, a coin we don't cover as much on the channel here is actually Ethereum. And ETH's had a bit of a tough run, being one of the worst performing altcoins over the last year. And after most of the community gave up on it back in April with the tariff news, we've actually seen ETH perform quite well recently. And it's only 8% away from the highs set back in December of last year, which is quite a nice sign to see here for the rest of the cryptocurrency market if you're going to be bullish on the rest of the market, as what tends to happen typically in an alt season is bigger market cap coins like Ethereum and XRP actually lead the charge first, push to the upside, soak up as much liquidity as they can, and then you see a lot of that splash out of these coins into smaller altcoins like Sui, for example here, which back from November of last year was one of the best performing coins. And so far you can see that even one of the best performing coins in this market has been quite slow to get moving so far in this final stage of the cycle, and that is because a lot of the bigger coins like ETH are soaking up a lot of the liquidity. However, at some point you will start to see a rotation once ETH starts to top, and a lot of these smaller coins will start to pick up, like Sui, for example. Speaking of larger coins that are actually performing quite well now, we're actually starting to see Solana break from that range that we spoke about last week on Friday and actually push up quite aggressively here in the last 24 hours. Which further proves the example that we touched on in Friday's video, that a lot of these coins are actually setting up for quite similar structures here. Like if you have a look at Solana's structure, you can see that it formed this accumulation range and then it ended up rejecting and consolidating below these lows set back here in December of last year, which is similar to how a lot of coins have actually set up, like Cardano here, for example. HBAR, which we can see is actually pushed a little bit further than Solana now. Dogecoin as well, which we can now see is actually broken out from that range discussed on Friday. And Chainlink, which has continued to break from this exact same range and actually push a little bit higher now. And the reason we reference all these coins and these zones in last Friday's video is because we've seen similar structures setting up for these coins, which played out for coins like XLM, for example, which you can see ran early and actually pushed out of this range much faster. However, all these structures were quite similar, which we did overlap here when you can see Chainlink over the top of XLM. How a lot of these structures were very similar. However, XLM just broke out sooner than Chainlink had, but structurally all of these things were quite similar here. And then what we were focusing on was actually the rotation from some of the coins that have outperformed earlier in the cycle, like XRP as well here, which we can see is broken out from a new all-time high. However, XRP's consolidation range was quite similar to a lot of these coins. It just broke sooner in the cycle. Now, one coin I didn't touch on in Friday's video is actually TIA. And thanks to Coach Rowan, or Rohan, as he likes to pronounce it, for reminding me why I didn't touch on coins like this. And when we actually go onto higher timeframes here, what you can see is that TIA's structure is completely different to all of these other coins. A lot of these other coins are sitting much higher, and the lows that they're actually rejecting from are completely different from the way coins like TIA are setting up here. And what you can see is that since TIA actually released in November of 2023, it has consolidated below the lows of its actual pre-release, and this coin looks like it has well and truly been abandoned and is currently sitting almost 90% down from its all-time high. So the reason I'm touching on TIA here is what you can see is that this shows no resemblance to the rest of the coins that we just touched on previously as far as these accumulation structures go, and that what we're seeing here is a slight rally from TIA, and that this is a perfect example of a coin that is underperforming the rest of the market. However, the one plus side to a coin like this, although I would never touch it personally, is the fact that because it has sold off so much, for TIA to just make it back into retracement levels, which if we have a look at on the 12-hour time frame here, you can see that if TIA is just to make it back to its 50% retracement level from current prices, that is more than a 400% price increase, which is still quite good if you're willing to take a gamble on a coin that I think has been abandoned, like TIA here, which is quite evidently resembled by the price structure, in comparison to something like Solana here, where you can see it is well above those levels and it is not sitting down here at $1 like TIA is, or even ADA Cardano here, not sitting down below 24 cents in comparison to TIA. And that these accumulation structures we're seeing from a lot of these stronger coins here are actually showing us a lot of resemblance to the way things like XRP played out here, for example. And the way that this price chart has reacted is almost like a foretelling sign of what's to come for the rest of these coins here, which are performing and setting up with the exact same structures. So guys, I actually took most of the weekend off to spend some time with family. However, coming back today and having a look at the price chart here, very bullish to see that the altcoin market here, excluding Bitcoin, has just been grinding and moving to the upside over the course of the last 3 days and since Friday's video, and that is resembled by actually seeing Bitcoin's dominance continue to break down here, which is everything you want to see in an alt season, which is why the way Bitcoin's price chart is reacting right now is completely irrelevant to me, as what you can see is that in certain market conditions like we are in right now, if Bitcoin goes up, if Bitcoin goes down, it doesn't really matter. The altcoin market is what is soaking up a lot of the liquidity and actually leading the charge here. So for the rest of the week, we'll see if altcoins like Chainlink here, Dogecoin here, end up actually pulling a bit of a catch up here and making it back to their old all-time high, similar to the way XRP actually did here, in where once it actually had grinded through this accumulation range here, you see it worked its way out and eventually shot to the upside, which I think a lot of these coins that have been underperforming so far are in the exact same situation. Just like HBAR here, for example, which has grinded its way out higher, is consolidating in this zone here and looking to potentially move up to that old high set back in December and January of last year. And also one more thing to add before we wrap up today's video here, guys, is that the XRP market cap dominance, so the way XRP has been performing against the rest of the market, is actually back at those highs from January earlier this year. That if we can see XRP actually break through the zone here on higher time frames, I don't see any pit stops here for XRP until actually shooting all the way back up to roughly these highs set back here in 2019 at about a 13% XRP market cap dominance, similar to the way things actually shot up in previous cycles here for XRP, and that if the dominance here for the XRP market cap actually revisits these levels, I would not be surprised to see that happen very fast and very aggressively like we've seen in the past, and that right now XRP's dominance is still a long way down, however presenting a chance that it could break from this and actually outperform the rest of the market quite aggressively quite soon. And that if we do tie that back into our fractal here, which we pulled from November, just kind of guesstimating where we think we are in roughly a move like this, that would also point to the same thing actually playing out quite soon here on XRP. So bullish on everything here, still quite long on everything. As far as Bitcoin performs, I'm not that bothered. Wouldn't surprise me if we do eventually see like a little bit of a C leg to about 114 come in. However, like touched on earlier, I don't think that's going to impact the price of the altcoin market too much, and that the next pit stop for the altcoin market is actually to take out those December highs. And if we see that sooner, or we see XRP explode and actually start to act like it's fractal here back from November, then I'll be back earlier with an update video. However, in the meantime, if there's anything you guys would like to see, feel free to drop it below down in the comment section. Make sure that if you're not subscribed to the channel, you subscribe and leave a like on the video. It helps a lot. And I'll see you guys in the next one.